side, and we provide 30-day housing to anybody who comes in town for therapy that's a certain distance away from the hospital. And so their housing would run out, and they were having to go do 6-month leases, were the smallest leases they could find, and they were doing Aaron's rent to own furniture because Airbnb was not around then. And so I had the idea while I was at bedside that if I could buy some places close to the hospital, furnish them, pay utilities, keep the costs less than what a hotel would cost them, that I would do okay. And so I did really well and expanded really fast. And I saw people, like, my advertising was putting a printout sign in the residence floor that said Comforts of Home Rentals, and it had a little thing, and people would call me, and that was when I connected with the housing coordinators and things, and was overflowing. So I started to see people put little signs up, and I was like, man, I must be doing something right because people are starting to copy me. So went from that. I left that in 2010 when I had a baby. I was dealing with some landlording issues. We had somebody open fire on the construction site next door, and that was a little bit of a hit for my business. The Ronald McDonald House, it was the mezzo on Peachtree when that was being built. I had a condo in the Bradford, and somebody opened fire on the construction site. And then when I was giving birth, the police called me, and they told me that they had to break into all of the Unit 808s in the area because they had a paper airplane that had been flown off of a balcony, and somebody was being held hostage in the unit. So that happened, the Ronald McDonald House opened, and that took a lot of my clients because they allowed our shepherd families to stay there until they were full. So I left that, I sold everything in 2010, and in 2017, I went back and I bought a house on Claremont Road that was about half a mile from Pathways, Shepherd Pathways, and I made it completely handicap accessible. And so that was the start of my handicap accessible co-living, and I didn't know co-living was a thing either. I just thought, okay, if I can keep it less than 4 people, I don't have to pay hotel taxes. And that was kind of all I knew about that. So I went off to Texas when COVID happened. I started doing ICU nursing out there, and I made a lot of money. I came back and I bought my partner out. I went to law school, so I'm a certified life care planner. So I do a lot of figuring out what it costs to take care of an injury from the time they get hurt until their life expectancy that is predicted, and then go to court to fight with that. Something recently that happened that's completing this entire circle for me with what I'm going to teach you today is I went out to Arizona. I went to the Creative Nation tour, and I met Pace Morby. And I talked with Jamil Damji, and I said, I came here, I've been hacking your webinars, and I've been looking to see what you've been doing, and I do the same thing, except I make my places handicap accessible, and I target workman's comp. And he said, can you do that in Arizona? And I was like, yes, I can. There's people hurt everywhere. So we went out and we spent a week with Rahima, and we learned their model that I think could also be very helpful. And I almost changed my presentation based on some of these things that I've learned over this time. And so some of you maybe have heard this before, but I went ahead and stuck with the basics. The slides that I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna skip through some of them because there's so many, but I left them in there because I'm gonna give you all of the slides. So then you can have that information when you're done and look back on it. So some of the things I'm kind of gonna speed through and whatnot. But when I was out in Arizona, I was getting doors slammed in my face. And I was like, man, workman's comp is really different out here than it is in Georgia. And so I figured out who was the biggest case management company in the nation, and they were servicing Arizona. So I came back to Atlanta and I got a workman's comp case manager position with Gen X. And so that's what I'm currently doing. I've been there about 3 weeks. And I feel like the keys to the castle were handed over to me on day 2. So I now have access to their entire vendor network, and I know how to get myself on that vendor network. So I think it's all coming together. I feel like I'm in school right now, but I'm actually getting paid to be there this time, which is really nice than how it's been. So let me tell you about what I've been doing. So I want you guys to, I'm not trying to take you down a path to do what I'm doing, but the concepts that I'm gonna teach you can be used in everything you're doing. They can be used in wholesaling, they can be used in fix and flipping. They're really valuable in multifamily. But I personally do really well with co-living, and I'm kind of at a max, so I'm looking at doing some flips and things with these concepts as well. But Claremont is 3 bedrooms. I need a lot of space because my patients are all in wheelchairs and they have a lot of medical equipment and things like that. I have roll-in showers in every room. I have wall-mounted sinks. Everything is handicap accessible. So with your traditional co-living models, you put 8 people, 10 people, however many bedrooms in a house. That's not my jam. Like I was just saying, I do a lot less people in a house. So I typically am not running across any of the issues with regulations of a certain amount of unrelated people in a house. Another thing I just found out that I have not explored yet is I am not bound by those regulations anyway.
Isn't that nice?
Fair housing is binding me. So I get a little bit more freedoms with that. And I'll tell you something about ADUs down the road. With like in most counties in Georgia, you have to live in the primary or you have to live in the ADU to be able to rent the other out for income. If you put a accessible ADU in your backyard, you can get fair housing variances. So there's little things like that too that are really valuable with this. But I have less people. I have bathrooms in every single one of my rooms because my workman's comp, they don't want to share bathrooms because they would rather spend more money on the space than have their clients arguing over shampoo and soap. So I have washers and dryers in every room over there. I have 3 washers and dryers in that house. And the reason I have that is because because spinal cord injuries cannot regulate bowels and bladder, and they have a whole lot more laundry than everybody else has. And because of that, laundry is also a difficulty in co-living situations because we have arguments about that in my house with nobody else living with us. If things are left in the, this doesn't smell very good, we have to do this again. So I have washers and dryers in every room. I have split units in every room, and I've heard about that in co-living in general, but I do it because my spinal cord injuries can't regulate their body temperatures. And they all have very different needs and wants. And some of them need it 80 degrees in their room, and some of them want it ice cold all the time. So that's a reason that I have split units in mine. And then another thing is parking is very important. The traffic flow is really important in what I'm doing because a lot of these guys have caregivers. And I had my first client on a ventilator in my house for a year. I actually had to not renew her lease because I'll tell you something about workman's comp. More money, more problems. When I did short term and everybody was self-pay and whatnot, they were the most amazing clients ever. And they were so thankful to have the space. But with workman's comp, they're all really angry that they're injured and they are ready to sue everybody. So just keep that in mind. So these are the houses that I currently have and I'm working on. And I'm gonna go over some numbers in these so you can kind of understand the differences of what I'm doing. I'm gonna talk about what I'm doing first, then I'm gonna talk about how you can apply it to everything you guys are doing. So this is the Claremont house that I was talking about. I have 3 rooms over there. This side of the house that has the brick chimney on it, these rooms are big enough to have either 2 beds in there, there's a king bed, I've had a king bed in that, some want dining room tables, they had me take a bed out to put a desk, so we changed furniture based on what they want, but they all basically have their own private living areas, they have their own mini fridges, but they share kitchen and dining. So these are my numbers on that house right now. My room 1, that's $1,800. I have not increased his rent in 3 years because he's the most amazing tenant ever. And I probably should be inching him up a little bit, but I'm kind of worried about losing him because we've had a little bit of problems with some of the other tenants over his time there. This is our City of Atlanta house that we got recently. This is our zombie house. It's always good for us to do zombies because we have to completely tear apart whatever bathroom you have. And if you give me something that's already remodeled, then I have to pay you for the beautiful work that you did, and then I have to take it out and redo it anyway. So those usually blow my numbers pretty good. We were looking into renting this to veterans, and we were kind of focused on that with a nonprofit that was doing vocational rehab for them. And I have some things I can talk to you guys about for sure on that end, and that's a big thing that they're doing in Arizona, where if you're providing care, then you can collect from Medicare, Medicaid, and you can bring some of that money in, and they're pretty decent numbers. I personally can't get an NIF number and charge those systems because I'm not providing care, and I want nothing to do with providing care. And by the way, I have a little bit different opinion about two-story houses now that I understand elevators and stair lifts better, but I personally am not ever going to purchase one that I have to put that in, because I'm not gonna add the expense of potentially having something else break down. And my patients or clients or tenants, they don't do so great with the constant transfers either. So I stay away from them, but as far as doing them I definitely would do fix and flips with stairs and offer a credit for a stair lift or something in that kind of way. But there's some things you need to know about the way stairs can be set up. That could make your stair lift cost $4,000, or it could cost $25,000. So there's some differences, and adaptability really is more of what I kind of teach. I have a real estate class that I have CE credits for to understand this a little bit better. But if you can take a house and you can change it easily, then that is more valuable than having it already done. And we'll talk some more about that. Misty Valley is our first house that we're doing that is a single family. We were gonna do 2 bedrooms. We decided to axe that because before I even closed on it, I had Workman's Comp come in and offer me a 5-year contract on this, a 5-year lease for $2,750, and this is in an area that our market rents are $1,550 and Section 8 rents are $1,860. Wow. So as soon as we get this done, we got a tenant to come in for $2,750 for 5 years. So we're doing this, there's only gonna be one bathroom that's handicap accessible. You'll be able to get into the whole house and access everything, but only one person will live in that. And so we felt like taking $2,750 and not splitting it into 2 rooms really reduces our risk, because if one of these people move out, then we're dealing with a vacancy rate that's gonna wipe out our profits.
Immediately.
Yeah, so we went that path. These slides are from a presentation that was before we decided to do that, but we also are keeping it a 3-2. It's a 3-1.5 right now. We're making it a 3-2. And the second bathroom will just be a regular bathroom. And then I put this one in there. This is one that we're currently working on. My partner might come in sometime during this talk, but this one is in Tucker. It's right off the interstate. It's in a mixed zoning, like it has mixed commercial and residential. And I wanted to put these rents on here. We're planning to put this into 3 bedrooms and spend about $70,000 on the remodel. I wanted to put these rents in here because they're higher because we're putting a generator in that house. And so by being able to have power, I can take high acuity clients that would otherwise have to go to a nursing home. So I can take ventilator clients. We can even expand out into the cardiac side, where there's LVADs and there's things that people are waiting on heart transplants and things for, and they have like 45 seconds of no power before their heart stops.
Yeah.
You can offer that kind of housing without having medical staff for them?
I don't provide the medical staff. My tenants are Workman's Comp. So I target the the home care companies, and they provide care. So I don't have any of that liability.
Okay. So there is care for them?
It's not through me.
Okay.
They're getting care on their, I set these up so they can live independently if they can, or if they have caregivers, then I make sure that there's the traffic flow and all the things to be sure that they can come in and manage that. But I do not provide any care and have no interest in it. So if anybody, I've heard Richmond Rose properties going around, and every time I talk with somebody that knows him, they tell me about them. I do not want anything to do with the caregiving business.
How long is your typical stay?
My typical stay, when Workman's Comp moved in, I was running around a 3 to 4 month cycle. When Workman's Comp came in, I'm averaging 18 months. And the reason they're staying so long is because they're waiting on cases to settle, or they have to be close to medical care since they're kind of fresh injuries, and they still go to frequent medical appointments. Yes, ma'am?
I have a question. You said workers' comp. You have contract with workers' comp?
I don't contract with Workman's Comp. I talk with Workman's Comp case managers specifically. And so usually insurance pays me directly. So the way I set up my leases is my lease is between 3 people. I am the landlord on the lease. The payer source agrees to pay for all of the things, and they agree to not pay for any extras that they do damage to or their guests do. And then the tenant or the resident agrees to all the rules of the house.
Is that because they have no place to go, no family, or they, because the hospital is too expensive? Why are they renting in your location?
They're coming to my location because when people get catastrophically injured like that, some of them can't go back home. Their houses are you can't renovate them, and you can't make them accessible for them, or the renovations take a while to figure out. And in my case with Workman's Comp cases, then they're dealing with the whole legal process of figuring out how like catastrophic injuries take a long time to work out, and they're never going back to work.
Wow. So these are not broken leg, broken arm people?
These are spinal cord injuries and brain injuries.
Why is it 3 to 4 months and they can't go back home? Just curious.
The 3 to 4 months was happening more when I was doing self-pays,
Okay.
and they were staying close to do their outpatient therapy and then leaving. With Workman's Comp, they don't know what they're gonna do yet. They don't know if Workman's Comp's gonna pay for modifications, or they're still working that out. And on the life care planning side, we figure out what it's gonna cost to take care of them for the rest of their life, and they're waiting on all of those things to be built. Like a life care plan takes me months to do, and it costs about $25,000 to put together. And then they do this because a lot of times, if somebody gets injured and your insurance company says, hey, I'll give you $20 million for that accident, you're like, oh yeah, I just hit the lottery, this is awesome. But they don't realize that with problems that your injury is gonna cause, and the therapies and the equipment and the lifespan of that equipment, they don't realize that it's gonna cost $60 or $80 million to take care of you through your life. So insurance will try to offer you a big number to make you settle and get on. Yep. So this is just a table of our rents. I'm not gonna get a whole lot into the statistics of the aging population. A lot of you that are my age are dealing with our parents and having to think about some of those things. Some of you guys may be thinking about these things for yourself. But the population is aging. There's not very much housing out there for them. They really don't even understand what they need. And I mean, the denial is a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother thing. So I'm not gonna get really deep into any of these statistics, but they're in the slideshow. You guys can look at them. I've got some national numbers. I've got some little more local numbers and things like that you're welcome to take a peek at. But the point that I want to drive home is that this is a huge market that is being ignored and has nowhere to go. There's some numbers about more of my aging demographics. Then you add disabilities on top of the aging. And I'll get to this in a second. But about, like, when you hear how many houses are there out there that are accessible? Well, there's 1% on the market. I have 1% of this. You'll hear 5% here and there. The 5% is generally referring to the commercial side, where they are saying they have common areas that are ADA compliant, and it's not quite the same, because when you get into the houses and they say ADA compliant bathrooms and this and that, I look around some of these spaces, I'm like, I don't even understand what their rules are. There's no way you could live in this. You can't get a walker in this bathroom, but this is ADA compliant. So it's really interesting in that way. Airbnbs, I've been in the spinal cord injury communities for a while, and they'll rent ADA compliant, or they'll rent these places, they'll get there and they'll be gravel to get from the car to the front door. Or we've had some fun things, and I have some pictures and things I could have added to this, where they get there and there's steps to enter, and so they'll call their friends to come tear the steps out and build a ramp out of their steps. So there's a lot of anger in the community about really not being accommodated. But I wanted to make a point about ADA compliance. It is commercial. Those are commercial standards. They do not apply to residential. They're a great place to start. Like, as far as ADA, like a really good one to consider are ramps and the rise over run. I don't know if you've heard any of that, but for every 1 inch you go out, you have to go out 12 inches. If you're dealing with the VA, they want it out 13 inches. So there's different standards in different places. If I'm dealing with somebody that's in a power chair, I'll give them a 1 to 10. Like, there's different things you can do based on the person that you're dealing with, and even based on the space that you're dealing with, because sometimes there's just not enough room to put that 1 to 12 ratio and make it fit. So just wanted to point out, I hear ADA nonstop, and I've had contractors argue me down and let me know that is just, I just absolutely can't do that. That's not gonna work. And I'm like, basically, you're just not the contractor for me.
See you later.
And then they come back and apologize. They've all come back and said, yeah, I looked it up and you're right, and I apologize. Universal design is kind of what I focus on. It can be used by anybody, and it's beautiful, and it doesn't look like an institution and things. So I'm gonna talk a lot about some different, I'll throw around handicap accessibility, adaptability, and universal design is kind of the main things that I'm going to talk about. We talked about this gap. There's a huge supply-demand imbalance, and lots of money is made when we're out of balance. So in my space, I'm still getting sometimes 5 calls a week that I have to turn down tenants for. So I have a huge amount of tenants, a huge amount of people that need it, and I don't have enough real estate. So maybe some of you guys can help me expand that a little bit.
We'll all find something for you.
Perfect.
Within how far from the hospitals, at least typically, and can they be in rural areas, or they have to have access to hospitals?
For my very specific model, in that way, I have to keep them as close to medical care as I can. In general, the house that we're working on, that's a single family, that'll have the 1 bedroom and bathroom that's accessible like that. That's anywhere. That's needed, everywhere. And if you build this way, then you are beating out your market in a sense of, like, people can't find this kind of housing. So you're not gonna appraise for more. You're not gonna really get a better number on your appraisal, but you're gonna get less days on market because you're gonna appeal to the entire market. And if you get a renter, a tenant that comes into one of your places like this, you are gonna have a pretty long-term tenant because there's nowhere else for them to go. The 1% that you look up the statistic out there, like you'll see some of the numbers, the 1 to 5 number floating around, the things that they are putting into that, like MLS numbers and things. The stipulations are a bedroom and bathroom on main, the hallway width of 36 inches. 36 inches is too small. I'm just going to tell you, depending on how it's set up, is too tight, and that is the main deal breaker for me because it's a pretty expensive fix. Making hallways wide. 0 steps to enter. Not a whole lot of places out there that are 0 steps to enter, but that number really doesn't consider modifications. So, and how easy it is to modify. Like, the ease of the modification is really where the golden ticket is. So I'm gonna skip through this too. You guys can look back at this, but I was telling you I'm gonna focus on universal design, adaptability, and kind of explain handicap accessibility and what that does to your marketing. So the magic of perceived value. We were kind of talking about this. I have an opinion on ADUs that I won't get into, but I bought that City of Atlanta house because in most of the places that you go to with ADUs, you have to live in one of the properties to rent it out and make money. In the City of Atlanta, you don't have to do that. And there's zoning in R5, you can have a duplex and you can put a guest house and an ADU and rent both of those out for each of the sides. So on a duplex in that zoning, you can have 5 structures on the property. I personally do not think that ADUs are worth it unless you're dealing with one specific scenario. And that is, if I have an aging parent, then that's kind of unsafe. If I can sell their house and take their money and I can build an ADU in my backyard that's accessible, then that's providing value to the child and their house. The thing with ADUs is financing really isn't out there. It's really not available. So you either have to pay cash for that ADU or you have to have a HELOC, or you have to have equity in the house to be able to pay for that. Yes, sir.
ADU?
Accessory dwelling unit.
A tiny home.
Tiny
Yep.
home, the tiny home nation.
They're very small, but even though it's not tiny.
And tiny homes, I believe, are supposed, like, you're less than 420 square feet, I believe. And in most places, you can build something bigger than that. And that's based on how big your primary is, how big your lot size is, things like that. How close are you to the street, just different things in that way. But in City of Atlanta, you can have a guest house and an ADU. However, if I have to pay cash for an ADU, it really makes more sense for me to take that money and buy a whole nother property that's gonna be worth more and is going to appreciate faster. So that's why I say I'm totally pro ADUs, and especially handicap accessible ADUs, universally designed ADUs. But I think that there's some pretty specific scenarios when you should put them in. But we bought that City of Atlanta property because we can put it in there. So even if we don't, if I have the same property, if I have a property side by side and I can put an ADU in one and not the backyard of another, then that makes that property more valuable, because I can then sell that property and say, there's potential here. There's income producing potential on my property compared to the neighbor's property, and I'm not charging you anything more for it. So I would personally, even if I'm not gonna put an ADU on it, pick the property that I could put an ADU on it. And that is kind of the perceived value of the adaptability of real estate. If it's easy to change and the person that is looking for the properties understand the ease of change, then your property is gonna be more valuable to them than the property next door is gonna be. So again, not asking you to build handicap accessible, but I do want you to pay attention to adaptability. So the way that this can benefit all of you, no matter what you're doing, is on the wholesaling side. I understand that there's not a lot of people out here that really understand what I'm saying, but if you understand the adaptability potential, you can explain that to your people as well, and you can increase the perceived value of your properties if you can understand how you can let them know anybody can use these properties. On that fix and flip side, I was just talking about the one handicap accessible bathroom and bedroom on a property. You're opening up your market by 30 to 40%. On the multifamily, I was at a short-term rental conference in Ohio with a friend of mine that was speaking, and there was a mixer the night before. And I met this gentleman that was out of North Georgia, and we found out what I was doing. He said, well, I have a handicap accessible tree house. I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. How did that come up? How did you do that? What's that?
Which leg is longer? I knew he was pulling your leg, right?
Well, he said it was a
It's
mess.
a long ramp up.
I mean, I don't even know. Maybe, I mean, we got the house in Atlanta. It is 2 stories because we can drive around to the back. And if you can drive around to the back and have no entry to go in and not have to use the stairs, Now we can put 2 people downstairs and 3 people upstairs, and it's not like actually having 5 people in a house. So maybe there's some sort of land slope on this tree house that makes that work. I don't
Is
know.
that an elevator?
Right.
I don't know. But I was like, wow, a handicap, how'd that go? How was your build? He's like, man, I wish I would have known you before when I was trying to put this together. I was like, yeah, me too. I would have loved to see that. But he was like, it was a shit show. I was like, all right, awesome. And the next day he got on stage. I didn't know he was a speaker. He got on stage to speak the next day, and the first thing they said about this man was, this is Michael so-and-so. He has a handicap accessible treehouse. And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
wow. Multi-families. Put yourself in an accessible unit in your apartment complexes, because you can market that. And your community will love you for being there for the community. So there are ways to describe some of these things that will make you outshine your neighbors. So, I mean, it can be used anywhere. And of course, if any of you are just investors and really don't want to do all of that, we can talk about that too. So I'm going to walk you through and just show you what to look for with these properties. And again, I kind of have definitely got off track and talked about a bunch of different things, so I'm going to speed through and skip over some of this stuff. But we got to be able to get you inside. And I have had more arguments with wholesalers who bring me properties and they swear it's going to work. I'm like, there are 7 steps to get in this front door. We can't do this. Like, well, it'll work if I was like, no, it doesn't have to be that long. You have to be able to get inside, and we need short steps. We need low steps to enter to get inside. We have 3 steps on the back of our Claremont house, but we also have a 48-foot long deck that has space for a long ramp that gives them all really nice outdoor space and things. So just look at your layout, and I'm happy to help you with evaluating your properties really quickly in that way if you want to send me any pictures or videos. Driveways, if you can just take a look at your driveways. We have a big problem with tree roots. Sweet gum trees are a big problem. So slopes, I have definitely had also properties brought to me that have really slopey driveways. And I'm like, just imagine yourself in a wheelchair. I know that's kind of hard to do, but if you got out of your car on this driveway, what do you think would happen? Like, you're gonna roll right out into the street, and that doesn't go well either. The pebbles I was talking about on the Airbnb, you got to have concrete to roll into the house. And again, I am so extreme handicap accessible, universal design. So, but they help everybody. It really, these concepts really help everybody. Pavers, I've seen, anytime I see anything, I see these beautiful pavers with this beautiful grass, and all I can think is, man, I would trip walking up that pathway. Foundation types, I kind of took that out because like slabs are the easiest to get into and the lowest to the ground, but based on Georgia's slopey land, it just, like, here's an example. Just look at the property and see what you're dealing with. Ramps, things to remember about ramps. I don't love putting ramps on the front of a house because it kind of ruins your curb appeal, and it opens you up to potential scams and frauds and like issues in that kind of way. Like it creates some safety issues. I always look at side entrances or back entrances and try to get people in from those places. Or there are some ways that you can build ramps into the front of the house with pickets and things that kind of in landscaping that make it blend in really nice. Aluminum holds up better, but it looks a little more institutional. Aluminum ramps can be removed. You got to pay attention to sprinklers and things like that. What do you have under you? Wood or the material you're using, does it have to be restained every year? So just some of those considerations when you're thinking about the beauty of properties and maintenance. Just a couple of like picture examples as we go, but this is one on the right side that is using more of the land grading and berming and different things you can do in that way to create your ramps. And all of that is, you're gonna get that benefit if you're catching this before the build or during the build.
And that's removable, that one?
Yep, that is removable. We were driving past, this is the Six Flags line I'm talking about when somebody brings me 7 steps to enter. And we were just driving around looking at properties and I was like, oh my gosh. Few red flags on kitchens. If they're narrow, they're really difficult to use. The best thing to do for kitchen drawers, the bottom drawers, are pull-outs are easiest to use. Ovens, get your knobs on the front. There are slide-out doors. Microwaves need to be low. Sitting them up above the oven makes it really difficult to use and is dangerous to bring hot food over your head and things like that. But mainly the layout in the kitchen is if you have your galley-style kitchens, those can be tough to get in and out of. Bathrooms are the most important. It's where the most falls happen. Curbless showers. If you guys happen to be rebuilding any bathrooms ever, don't put a curb on them. And again, this is the gold standard. If you can do this, you're opening up your world. And there are different levels of accessibility. So you could have somebody with a walker, you could have somebody in a wheelchair. You don't necessarily have to go all out. And the more of these little pieces that you can add to your property, the more valuable you're gonna make it as far as getting it off your books, like really quickly. Somewhere in the bathroom you need a place to turn around. That, with residential, this is where I've gotten into fights with contractors where they need their 5 by 5 foot space. You can use some of that inside of a shower to pull up beside a toilet and different things. So residential standards are a little different. Not really worth getting into the huge specifics of it because it's super boring, but if you happen to find a property that you want to dig into, I'm here for you. Reinforced walls. Anytime any of you were ever have tile out or redoing your bathroom, please just put a block of wood, put a 2x10 across your tile, under your tile, put blocking on your walls. Because what that does is it allows me to spend $40 to put a grab bar in instead of ripping out a tile wall to be sure my bars are secured. And the suction ones, don't use those. Don't use those suction handles. So if you ever have anything out, you can likely find scrap wood on your site, or is it on the next slide? I put prices of blocks of wood that you could get. This is the price that it's gonna cost you.
Nothing.
That's gonna save you thousands down the road if you need to make these changes. And these are valuable no matter what, because just having a little something extra to hold on to if you have a surgery, if you have anything pop up, you don't necessarily have to have all of the things, but to be able to add this easy is special. So a few other tricks. There's hinges that you can put on doors. Universal design, like standards, are 32 inches. All your doors don't have to be 36. Most people can get through with a 32. These hinges that you can get for $30 will give you an extra 2 inches when you open up your door, depending on how your door is sitting. So there are still some tricks that you can do if you need a little bit of extra accessibility that will, you can get by with not reframing your door. But again, if you are building, it doesn't cost anything more to frame out a door for 36 inches than it does for 30 inches. And I think that I have a door cost. Here's our difference between our doors. So this is a really minimal cost to do on the front end when you're building. Like, you're really looking at 0.5% to 2% more for your entire build to build this way. And you do not need to put grab bars in. But if you have a roll-in shower and you have bracing behind the walls, that's as good that is 100% handicap accessible. So I don't recommend I don't even put the grab bars in our showers anymore until somebody needs them. So, and then there's bracing that you can put if you were to need a shower chair, Even thinking about down the hallway, like handrails down hallways and things, you can put bracing down hallways. Another really important location for that is coming in your garage. Like a lot of people are always, there's usually one step or whatever. So having some backing behind some of those things, if you happen to have walls down. Take a picture. And this is like basically just a little graph to show it does not cost basically anything more to do it on the front end compared to when you have to go back and redo it later. So that means for you guys, if you can pull these concepts into your builds or how you're thinking about your properties, is you're expanding your market to 100% of, I mean, anybody can use these properties. Renters, like I said, you're gonna get a lot more of the longevity because there's nowhere else for them to go. You're gonna stand out in your community and attract more tenants in general, and have less turnover. And you can, I'm not saying to jack up your prices for this, but you can still get top of market on your builds and things. I inflate my prices because I'm going to a completely different payer source. And until that, until I've filled up that supply, that demand, then that's like where I'm gonna focus. Just why not? So yeah, basically this is all just wrapping up what I'm saying, that you can use this stuff anywhere you go for any project. And here are my slides. I also, you don't need to remember any specifics, like we put our electric outlets a little bit higher. We're at 18. We're going between 18 and 48 on everything that we're trying to do. There's a lot of little specifics. So I made a custom GPT that you can use. And so if you're going through anything or have any questions about dimensions, you can ask this GPT what you need, and it'll give you all the answers to that.
So the properties you have right now, you are an owner of some land?
Yeah, we own 100% of everything we have right now, but we're changing a little bit. So if you're interested, I'll tell you what Jamil and Rahima are doing out in Arizona.
Tell us,
Yeah.
please.
It's brilliant. So, and these ladies may be able to kind of relate to a little bit of this, but so they are building 6-bedroom, 6-bathroom houses out there. And they're tearing them down and leaving 1 to 2 walls standing, and that's it. And if they can leave the 1 to 2 walls standing, they can go from closing to completion in 6 weeks. Because they're not like permitting by leaving those 2 walls, and they're pouring new slabs, they're doing new everything. New builds are taking about 3 months longer, but is what they're doing is with their community, they have Housing Alchemy. Their community members are investing in these properties. So they are coming in, they're building to the tops of the ARVs. So they're putting in $100,000 to $125,000 on the front end, and they don't expect to get that back. They can't pull it back out later. Because when they go to do their DSCR, they're going to be at about 70 to 80% depending loan to LTV, and so they're building to their top ARVs, and so they're going to have to leave that money there. However, then Rahima, so she's finding the deals, she's bringing the investors in, she's a loan originating, she's then building and finding the tenants to go into those. Her tenant base is, she always has a 100-person wait list because her master tenant, she brings in master tenants, and the master tenants are vocational rehab specialists that are charging Medicare, Medicaid. They're getting $700 to $800 a day, and then she's charging $260 a week per room. And then she is the property manager, so they're paying her 22% to manage those properties, and she's the builder. So she has a deal with Home Depot, and so they're giving her all of her supplies at 70%, but here's an even bigger piece of magic to this. So the master tenant is vocational rehab. So they're taking the people out of the hospitals and facilities, and they're integrating them back into work. And so if they pay for housing for them and transportation to work, then that injured, or that person stays with them a lot longer, and they get to collect $700 a day, $800 a day on them longer. So she's paying $36 a day for each of those rooms. And then providing transportation, and the transportation that they're taking them to are the work sites for Rahima. So Home Depot is paying to train the workers to build Rahima's houses.
Oh my God.
Like, it is just the most brilliant thing I've ever seen.
That's the hack right there.
So as we were out there, we were being shopped as a master tenant is what they brought us out there for. And a couple days in, we had no idea what was even really happening. We're trying to figure this out, and we're just like, this is amazing. Oh my gosh, this is more amazing. Like, every hour, we're like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. And so like the second day, we were like, it really doesn't make sense for your investors to come in and build these specific, because our numbers have to be higher, because we can put less people in your space. So on your 1850 square feet, we can only do 4 tenants. On your 2250, we can do 5. And so we have to charge more. That's more risk for them, and we're boxing them into a pretty specialized house. So how about we come in as the investors and the master tenant? So that's kind of what we've been working on with our expansion to Arizona, but then ran into the problems of finding the workman's comp cases to fill them. And that was when I came back, and when we started having those problems, got a workman's comp case management job.
Can you talk a little bit more about like the Black Box in Georgia? I know you talked a little bit about being fixed at a hospital. What are some of the other things that you look for?
Right.
Is it neighborhood? All those factors? Or some other factors you look for?
It depends on the exit. So we're kind of getting saturated with the rent by the rooms right now, and want to pull that back a little bit to be sure the systems are all in place. So we can buy anywhere now, but we need low steps to enter, and we need good parking and good ways to get in and out of the car, and we need wide hallways, and everything else can be changed. We don't want something that's already remodeled, because we have to go back and change it all.
Is there a price point that you look at?
There is a software that we're using called DataSift. And so we go into that and basically have connected it to Manus. So our AI is doing our searches. So what that does is it pulls into not only zip codes, but digs into neighborhoods to let us know where investor activity is happening. And then it tells us what price range is selling the most. And right now, it's mostly on the lower end, not the super low end, but the one step up from that. So most of the properties are around the $300,000 to $350,000 range at the end of the rehab. So that's a really, I think with where the economy is going and people losing jobs and AI and this and that, there's a bit of a split is happening where we're either going down or we're going up, and the middle space is going to get lost. So I think we'll see a little bit of even we're slow at the top end, because there's a lot of uncertainty and less people that can spend $1 million, $2 million on a house right now. So we're kind of focused in that lower tier, mid to lower tier.
A lot of what you showed looked like ranch style homes. Is that pretty much what you're looking for? So that wouldn't have stairs, wouldn't have a second level?
So I'm not opposed to second levels, but it just depends on the layout of the land. So if I can, like even our primary residence is a great setup, and it's 2 stories, because we could build to go down and just drive behind the house to enter at the bottom. So it's more of that kind of scenario. We were looking at a house in our neighborhood because we were thinking still multi-generational and things. And I'm gonna tell you a story about a builder in our neighborhood on that end. I was running through, we live over off La Vista, right inside 285. And there is a new neighborhood that's being built right by Briar Lake Elementary, and it's 5 houses. So I was out running one morning and I saw the sign, and it says Master on Main. So we started going through those houses and watching them being built. And one day there was a gentleman out front that didn't look like the others. And I was like, okay, I think I found who's the big cheese here. Let me go talk with him. And I was asking him, I was like, you know, tell me more about Master on Main. Tell me who you're targeting and what you're doing with that. And he said, we're targeting old people. And this gentleman was like 75, like he was like, all right. So we're targeting old people. I was like, oh, okay, well, what else are you doing to accommodate that target market? And when you go into these houses, there is 19 inches. I've been in there with a laser level. Like I'm figuring out how long, where's this ramp gonna end? Like they are building $1.8 million houses and I got 19 inches to get in at the step. So I'm like, all right, so the ramp's gotta go here and then I gotta run here. Like that's gonna take up a lot of this. The door to get in, 30 inches. And it's a tall, beautiful, nice, like 30 inches. I'm like, you can't even get in the door that you're saying, like this Master on Main, and you have a 30-inch door. It would have cost you nothing to make that 32 or 36. 36 if you're coming from outside, like just make it bigger. The Master on Main, we're like, I'm taking pictures of all that. 30-inch door to get in that master bedroom. The bathroom has got a 4-inch lip to get in. Definitely no bracing around the edges to add grab bars later. The doors, when you open first off, we have a toilet closet and nobody getting in to be able to transfer onto a toilet with walls, with a door this big and walls on both sides. So that was an issue. The closet was right, like a linen closet or something right across. The doors were hitting, like it was close enough that the doors were hitting. And then we go out and we look at the stairs, and is what I was talking about with stairs and 2 levels and things. If I have a staircase that is straight down and has a solid wall on one side of it, then that's the cheapest stair lift you're gonna ever get, and you're looking at between $3,800 and $4,200 to put that stair lift in. If you have to get more commercial grade because you need to carry more weight, then you're gonna add about $1,800, $2,000 to that cost. And that is because the rail has to go past that bottom step to get the chair to the ground. So if I'm against the wall, I can go all the way down and get up and it's just tucked out of the way and everything's good. If I come down the stairs and that rail goes past and here's my stairs and it's a walkway in front of me, like I don't have walls, now my rail is in the walkway and it comes out of 18 to 20 inches. So now I've got to spend another $2,000 to pull that rail out of the way. If you have a curve, if you get to a landing and then have to do a turn to do 2 steps to get down, you've increased your cost of your stair lift to about $20,000, and it'll take about 4 months to build because you have to do a custom curve lift on anything with curves. So in this house had like 3 curves going down. At the bottom, they have these double doors going into another bedroom downstairs and only 12 inches. So you can't even get the rail past the step without blocking the other door on this side. And at the top, there was a gap about this much, like a weird gap, just a weird gap. So you couldn't even put an elevator in the nook like that's curving around those beautiful stairs. Because when you would get to the top, you'd have to step over a blank, gap like this. And then I'm like, well, do you have any elevators, shafts? We don't put elevators in. I'm like, no. Not asking you to put elevators in, but if you stack 2 closets on top of each other, now I can put an elevator in. They had none of this. And they're advertising, they're trying to sell to people looking for multi-generational,
Assisted living.
solutions.
Have any of them come on working yet?
Yes,
How long are they sitting there?
they're still there.
How long are they?
I don't know.
Okay.
And they're tiered. They still have like 3 of them being built. I've seen the same lamps in the window, so I'm pretty sure there's still the staging that went in.
From the time you were in the industry of, with rehab and all, that you realized the need, wow, I can provide and help these people, till the time that you had your first person in a home that you purchased that was fully accommodated, what was that time frame? And then what was the time frame since then to you have now a well-oiled machine?
I don't remember exactly, but back then, Like, I didn't have kids. It was just, I was a little bit obsessive about the whole thing. And I mean, as fast as I could buy a place, I actually even had to dodge the association rules because you could only have 2 leases a year. And so that was an interesting risk that I took on the first one. So that went pretty fast. The expansion went pretty fast. It took me a little while to build up the reputation to have the clients calling. And so I would say I was like a year and a half in before I was consistently getting calls. And then COVID hit and it was like I'd just gotten everything solid and was like, oh my God, everything's full and this is amazing. And in 2 weeks it emptied out. And then within 2 more weeks it was full again, and that was my shift to long term.
And
How
none
many
of your
properties
clients,
do you need here in the Atlanta area? Do you have a certain number you need? 5, 50, 200?
About 10 would be good to
10, okay.
really to roll out with.
300 or below price range when you're all done.
The thing about the co-living side of this is it's best, like my favorite area is Martin Manor, like right in front of Woodland Hills, because it's close to Shepherd and it's still about 100,000 less, and that's not a $300,000 neighborhood.
Okay.
At the end of the day,
That's gonna
it's
limit you a little
running
bit.
more around $650 to get in on a decent level. But those better neighborhoods like that
Can you
will
use an
stay full.
existing structure somehow, I guess like an old motel?
Yes,
That would work better for you?
that could work.
Do you need the inside corridors or the outside corridors?
Either.
Oh, okay.
We have looked into that. Like we had some Embassy Suites, some properties that come across that had bigger rooms and things that we'd looked into. My original plan, like as I was going into this, was the hotel that is on Peachtree Road that has the peach on it.
Okay.
That's right at the bridge. That I had my eye on that property, and I talked with the doctors, and I started gathering money, and because I was like, that billboard is amazing, like that billboard is fantastic. And it turns out that I had raised $4 million through different doctors, took that to the hospital, and I was like, hey, this isn't gonna work, you need another residence center, I've looked into this, this is the money, we can't get the billboard, there's a 100-year lease on it that Comcast and Chick-fil-A and Xfinity has, that they were like 1.2 million a year just on the billboard. But I was like, wouldn't it be amazing for Shepherd Center's logo to be like right there beside all of that 24/7, like this is the building, this is gonna be, I like laid it all out. And Alana Shepherd, she's like, honey, you can't help everyone. And she kicked me out of her office, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was just like, she just cut me. And I was pretty young and really nervous to be there to begin with, and so that was kind of an interesting hit. But a couple years later, I was sitting on my couch, and the news was on. And they laid my plan out on the news, and they bought Ted's Montana Grill and Uncle Julio's, and they tore that down and have spent $300 million on that property. And so I cried. I was like, again, another gut punch where I was like, man, I just wanted to be a part of it. But then on the other side, I was like, man, they're gonna help so many people, and somebody's putting $300 million into my idea, so I think I'm on the right track. And it's there, and I hear that the building is a lemon, and they've had a lot of problems with that new building.
Serves them right.
do you have any patients calling you, or are they all case managers?
I have all case managers calling right now. One thing that I'm also seeing is they have paid vacancy rates, because if the home health company can have one room, then they want all the rooms because it's easier on their employees. So that has been kind of an issue of not having enough supply, because they're paying vacancy rates because they know they're gonna have somebody coming in right behind it. And now is what I'm starting to see, is I'm getting some hustlers that are caregivers that are in, and they are like, I'm doing private duty care for this guy here, and he's not with Workman's Comp, he's a self-pay. And she's like, I want this whole house, I wanna take care of all these. So she's referring people now to me and trying to fill the rooms as they're coming up, so she can then take over that caregiving on those clients.
You mentioned Rich Monroe earlier, I just talked to him today. We've been to lots of vacation rentals, I don't remember any of them with a, 36-inch door, and definitely they didn't have a ramp. Is there, and who knows how close the nearest hospital, I was just down in Florida on Friday.
Vacations are different. They're not worried about medical care there. They wanna just go on vacation and have nowhere to stay. So I do have, a guy in my network that is in a chair, and he has a place in Cape Coral that's a duplex that he rents out. That's a completely accessible, so he's doing really well. And he's actually about to move to Myrtle Beach, and we're looking at potentially buying his house in Wilmington that he has already done, and so I've got a quad live in there, so I know it's put together right.
Question. When you, I know you mentioned that you have some long-term, most of yours are like long-term stays, you said around 18 months. When someone moves out, how soon do you have someone, to fill the spot?
I start working on filling them before they're gone, so as soon as I can flip the room. We've had some interesting tenants. We've had a kind of a run of bad tenants lately, which is, I don't even know why.
Welcome to the rental market.
What, okay, I'm thinking about what you said about like.
So it's
spinal
taken a little
owners.
bit of time to flip, cause we had one that had brought a dog in the room and it ate all of the window seals, and
Oh, okay, I got
so, yeah, so some trim work, had to be done, and it ate all the blinds, and
Are pets not allowed and all?
pets are not allowed because, I have respiratory compromised clients in there. So I told them, I tell them, you can't have a cat, you can't, if it's, you can't have your girlfriend's emotional support dog in here. That was the one that tore up the room. So no, if you have a trained, if you have a trained dog that you need the dog to help you live, then that's a different story. And there are rules about that and things that we can't discriminate against those pets, but I don't do typical, just let people have pets, cause one, they can't take care of them themselves. You're not gonna empty that cat litter, and I know your caregivers don't wanna do it.
And you're not gonna take that dog for a walk
You're not, well,
very easily.
and I just can't have, there's immunocompromised. I've rented to the Transplant Foundation and dealt with some of those people coming in, and you really have to worry about how clean everything is for the transplants especially, but these guys are coming in with open airways a lot of times.
So are you protected because of the kind of housing you provide? Like, with people who say, well, this is my emotional support animal, and I am allowed to bring this animal anywhere, but because of your restrictions, you can say no to them?
I haven't, that's just what I've done. I don't know what kind of legal issues there are around any of that.
Gotcha.
But the guy gave me a paper, and it was for his girlfriend, and the paper expired in 6 days.
Oh my gosh.
And
No more
you can't have,
emotional support
you
needed.
can't have your girlfriend's emotional support dog here.
I think there's one important thing, so everybody here, top of mind, so I broker your loans. Top of mind is, how do you even get this thing funded? One key thing that you do is you don't provide the care.
Correct.
It shortens the list of lenders willing to give you the loan to ones that fund specifically care homes. Versus, hey, you just have a rental property, you happen to have tenants in there, you're not providing that service. That's really key.
So I don't even know that there's lenders out there that focus on people who provide care, because I have no interest in doing it. So that's not even anything I've looked into. So the challenge that I have on my end is, our rents are higher than everybody else's rents by a lot. I can't really use those rents on, when I'm going into a situation like a DSCR, I can't guarantee that once I'm gone, if anything happens to me in my loan, that you can bring in the same clients I have. So I still have to consider market rents in all of my, I have to fund it like a regular deal.
Yeah, when you get into it, you've gotta consider the market rent when you go to refi it, and maybe take cash out to enhance it or go get the next one, if you have 12 months of history, you'll be able to apply that to the right lender will look at it correctly. But that's also a short list.
It's a
for
short
loan.
list. Right,
But,
right.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Like too many people are like, oh my gosh, I should be able to get a loan all day long. Look at the rents. It's like, yeah, you gotta get into it on a single family renting a house.
Right.
market rate.
Right. And there can't be any numbers on the doors or anything like that when you go through to,
Like the laundry one will throw some of them off for the refi. So looking at that physical space and going, okay, how is that repurposable that I can sell this house? Cause the banks aren't in the business of owning, they're the banks of going, okay, this house went sideways. How do we put it on the market? Anybody can buy it. That's the way of living.
that was a traditional mortgage when we did that. I had no idea I could use other people's money. As I've moved down this path in this way, private money really is the best way for us to go. Because depending on who you're using, you can kind of do what you want to do, but we all get to decide how we're gonna deal with that money and what risk tolerance each of us have. So, there are some challenges for sure on the financing side and the DSCR side. And that's why, like with the Rahima properties, they're coming in with 125 upfront on a property with a 500 ARV, and they just are not, there's no plan to get that money back anytime soon. It just stays there. That's their investment in to get their $6,000 a month on that house.
Yeah, that's smart. I mean, it's smart.
67.54, I think is maybe the number, something like that they're getting per month on those houses. And they guarantee them with no vacancy rate, because they're renting to organizations that are filling them with government-funded clients that they're providing care for.
Earlier in your slides, you had put $2,750 as one of the rates for one of the first homes you had put up. And I wanted to know, how were you able to gauge that price? Because you were saying like Section A was I think like $1,850, and of course Section A has its own little chart that tells you kind of what you could ask for.
Yep.
Is there a specific chart that you go by, or the what's it called?
Yes.
An association has to kind of approve?
Nothing that anybody has to approve. So the way there are reports that you can purchase. There's fee payment, like standards, just like you would look up Section 8 fee, like payment standards. Workman's Comp basically guides the whole industry, all of insurance. So Workman's Comp pays the most. And so they have payment standards out there, but you have to pay to get their numbers. So I just generally get them from the case managers that I talk with and have relationships with, and I'm like, what are you at? Oh, you'll pay $4,900 for a 2-bedroom? Okay. And I think of it more like, I know that home health company is going to charge that maximum amount to Workman's Comp. The home health company is going to pay me. So I make sure that I charge them an amount that they can then basically arbitrage they can make money on the rooms on my end. So I can charge more, but I can't get too crazy, because then that eats into their profits that they're charging Workman's Comp. And so I'm just constantly judging it in that kind of way and running with the market. And if, like right now, I took my $2,200 room and I'm like, yeah, on the next one that was coming through, I was like, yeah, it's gonna be $2,400. And it's the first time I've heard that's too much. And I'm like, okay. So as I'm throwing those out, it's kind of just like just monitoring it over the years and figuring it out as I go. And knowing that I'm gonna definitely keep room for that home health company to make money. And I asked one of the home health owners, I was like, do you wanna be partners on a deal? Like, let's do a house together. He's like, there's no point in me doing that and taking on the risk and liability of owning the real estate and dealing with the maintenance, because I'm just gonna make money on yours. Like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Case management insurance companies, we work with some.
Okay.
Now, that relationship, is that established because you were a prior nurse and you had some healthcare background to have access to those case managers?
Yes, I grew up with those case managers.
Okay,
So we were nurses at the baby real estate professional or investor I am right now. We were baby nurses and grew up together, and now they expanded out to the external catastrophic.
Second person, somehow was late coming in or to the bathroom or something. What I wanted to ask you, what about co-housing for veterans? So how do you get in touch with them? So there's no return calls.
I will send you all of the information. I have it all on my computer. I'll send it to you right now. So the VASH program does do rent by the room, but the problem that they have right now is that they don't have enough staff to evaluate the houses. So same as Section 8, they have to send somebody out to approve the house and make sure the smoke detectors work and all the things. And they don't have enough staff to be able to come out to do that. So I was like, come on, Chris, I have handicap accessible. You know you need this accessible real estate. He's like, I don't have the staff to come and see it. You're on, like, there's 200 people on this wait list. So yes, they do it, but no, they're not taking any more and getting into it right now.
Makes sense. Thank you.
But I'll send you the information. You can, anybody's welcome to have that.
With the washer and dryers that you have in all the room, are they stackable? And are they 110, or are you putting 220 in all these rooms?
Only
Elect-
110.
110.
He's, I tell him what I want and he builds it up for me.
Are they stackable?
It depends on the space that
Okay,
you
that makes
have.
sense.
One room, you can do whatever, but
Right.
we stack ours.
That would make sense.
We have some that are stacked because of the space that we have, and then the ones that if you have room to put side by side, the most accessible washers and dryers to do that with are the front loaders and put them on pedestals. So if you can do side by side on pedestals, then that is the most independent
How do they
use
get
case.
to the tall ones with the dryers that are way up high?
So the way I have like one of them situated, and a lot of my people have caregivers, so that I made a lot of mistakes on the build coming from the caregiver mindset, like where water placement would be, and that, oh, if I have a shower chair over here, they can't reach the water over here. Because in my mind, well, the caregiver will turn it on, it's fine. But like in one of them, the way the ramp is built to get into the room, it goes up and it has a platform, and then it curves and goes back up the rest of the way. So the washer and dryer is in the hole basically of the platform. So that makes them higher. So now the dryer or the washing machine is lower for them and they can still reach the top. So we have an independent situation with a stackable in that space.
Did you say you have washers and dryers in each room?
Not in all the houses, just at that one Claremont house. So at the 5-bedroom house that will have three upstairs and 2 downstairs, we'll put a washer and dryer upstairs and a washer and dryer downstairs,
Okay, so there's-
which on the lending side doesn't look as bad if you just have one upstairs and one downstairs. It's your turn.
Okay, on his question with Section 8, they do have a different set of numbers for ADA compliant properties.
Is it section 811? Is it
What?
called something different? I've seen section 811 and I've also seen project-based vouchers.
Well, I'm talking Section 8, because I've got a guy that, all his properties are ADA compliant, and he is at the top end of everything, and he's got 37 houses that are ADA compliant, and he's in the top end, and the renters don't leave. They're
Right.
out.
Right.
Then they leave.
Well, no, then they get buried.
Oh, they died,
And
yeah.
maybe in the backyard.
Hopefully not in the
By
backyard.
ADU.
They don't have to go far to have to go.
Backyard.
You can also find the, Section 8 schedule, they pay different for different zip codes as well. So, and then, like you said, the ones that you can accessible, you'll probably find that variance as well as the rate that they pay for that.
We did have a government payer that was coming out of the behavioral health, Georgia Behavioral Mental Health. And they were paying $1,900 for one of my rooms that has 2 bedrooms. So they basically were paying me a 2-bedroom voucher, even though it was just for the rooms. But the trade-off with them was we were furnishing it and paying utilities, so we weren't getting utility stipend, and it took the stress off of the case manager because they all come with case managers in that department as well. But we are not renewing his lease right now. So he's moving out on the 15th.
When's the party, on 16th?
Maybe on the 15th,
Okay, same day, okay.
as it's happening. But he has, it's just been interesting, just like with Vash, with the veteran side, the requirements for Georgia are they have to be homeless for 2 years. And you just get really interesting tenants that are coming with different mindsets if they've been homeless like that.
Can't live with other people.
Some of them cannot live with other people. And our problem with this guy is he's fine living with other people, but it's the other people who don't wanna live with him.
Works either way, you're right.
He wants
And the VA's never been known for speed, so they're never in a hurry.
Well, neither is the Department of Behavioral and Mental Health.
Government agency.
Anything.
Question, do you have, rooms where you have multiple people in the same room, or every person
No.
has their own?
Everybody has their own room and they have their own bathroom. If we have extra rooms that would need to share a bathroom, then we bulk it up and rent those to somebody who would have a spouse or a child or have visitors where they would need or a caregiver suite type of thing if they have 24-hour care. So we'll bulk if we have more than, like if we have 2 bedrooms that there's just no way to put in another bathroom, then we would bulk it and rent those together.
Danielle,
Yes.
would you be interested in partnering with investors on, say, small apartments and building them out to do what you want to do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And as I've learned more about other models and what they're doing, there was a time when I said, no, I don't really want to manage and fill and use my resources for properties that I don't have equity in or own. But I'm kind of changing my mind a little bit because I just keep turning down money and I have people that need them.
Would you rather partner or would you rather be a consultant to get things done?
It just depends on the scenario,
Okay.
the case. We did have a guy speak that does the permitting process for affordable housing for City of Atlanta. And so I have been talking with him and it's really interesting. You guys have a required amount of units in multifamily in certain areas that have to be like, you're signing a lease with the state for like 30 years. You have to have these
Even longer,
units for affordable housing.
yeah.
Or you can pay $100,000 to $250,000 a unit to be excluded from that and charge
You get money
whatever.
from the city if you do that too.
If you
And
want.
the county, and the state, and the feds.
So when he's talking about all this, it's like, it's really interesting that you're not bringing up accessibility or the disabled at all. Because a third of your voucher holders are disabled. And he was like, it's just not my wheelhouse. I just don't know it that well. Would it be okay with you if we connected you with some of the builders that are doing these projects? Cause they need help
Who
too.
need consultants?
So yes, this is my love. I get way too excited about accessibility and
That's good.
I know it's probably pretty boring to everybody, but
If somebody's got a property in this room that, wow, I got a 36-inch door,
yeah,
I can put a ramp in there pretty easily.
yeah,
And, I might have a 5-foot turnaround.
yeah.
What would the top 3 to 5 things that you say to them that say to enter into this?
Is what I would do is say, send me a video of your property. Usually people don't understand what pictures I need to see if it's gonna work or not. So I basically, and I've been through some phases of going, oh my God, I'm gonna come out and look at your property. It takes a lot of time to go look at everybody's properties. So
Yeah.
send me a video of your property, anybody. I'm happy to look at it and give you an immediate answer of this would be easy, this is not doable. Probably, I find 1 out of 100 properties that is really set up well to do the co-living situation I'm talking about. But maybe 1 in 10 are set up to do the single family flip scenario that I'm saying, but happy to look at any videos and tell you what to do, and even happy to come in and depending on how much work you need me to do, like I will give you a plan and tell you what you want, what you should do, what you can do for $500. If you want me to be involved and work with your contractor and actually make sure you get what you tell them that you want, it'll be a little bit more.
Danielle, what's the best way for investors to reach you if they have a question?
I have accessible co-living on here that you can get you can email me, you can call me, my phone number's on this as well. Can I give you my phone number? Just
No.
now, just
Well, if you
call it
want
out.
to.
You can write it down if you
It's on
like.
the- on that.
It's in the slides.
It is,
No, I'm saying it's, when you scan that QR code, then it comes up.
yep. But my phone number, if you don't wanna go through that, and I'm not gonna spam you, by the way, like, you do have to put your email in to get this information, but I'm not gonna bother you. I'm not advanced enough in my automations to bother you yet.
Well,
Working on
bothering,
it.
huh? Okay.
I'm working
That's
on
good.
it, but I'm not quite there yet. But, he's laughing because he's a little further along than me. But, my phone number is 770-855-6701. Call me for, whatever, unless it's midnight or 6 a.m.
How do you deal with the county, with the neighborhood neighbors that, maybe there's not a homeowners association, but there are a bunch of neighbors going, you can't hook up my neighborhood. How do you deal with that?
I haven't had to, cause I just pay attention to where, like I really look at the property flow and like, can I hide cars behind this house, or can I like keep the traffic flow down to keep it blended in and not be a problem? I don't go to neighborhoods that have houses that are close. I'd like make sure that I have room to have everybody coming and going and not be super annoying about it to my neighbors, and just try to be considerate to them. But I also don't have as many people in the house like a traditional co-living, so it's not as crazy. Like, for the most part, we're mostly three. The 5-bedroom we'll see how that goes, but that's in an area that people have cars all over the street too, so.
And how many refrigerators do you typically have?
On the 5, there'll be one upstairs and one downstairs. Rahima's doing 3 refrigerators in her 6 bedrooms. So in her kitchens, she has 2 ovens, 2 microwaves, 2 sinks, and 3 refrigerators.
What's the smallest square footage house you have?
1057.
Oh, okay.
It's
For-
tiny.
For 2?
For just one. That is just where one will be. That's the single family, the 2750 renter.
The 5-year
Good.
lease renter, right?
The 5-year, yeah. And another thing I do with my leases, with medical, there's a lot of uncertainty, especially when they were acute and in the hospital and coming out of that. So I will do weekly, like this is a trick that you guys can do too. You can have a weekly price, and then if they want to do longer, you can negotiate that down to a monthly cost. But on my leases, I do year-long leases for everybody just to avoid paperwork, but I give them, depending on if they're weekly or monthly, a 7 or 30-day notice to leave for any reason. So if they're paying me a weekly price and want that flexibility of coming in and out and wanting to leave soon, then I'll tell them, if you give me a 7-day notice, you're fine. You can leave for whatever reason you need. And I'm pretty lenient even with prorating and things, and will help people out in whatever ways. I've had people pass away and they're just like, I'm definitely not holding anybody, hostage and making you pay more while you're already going through these tragedies. So that's kind of been really helpful with increasing prices too, because you can trade off for the flexibility. And then they end up staying a really long time, but they're happy having the flexibility on the front end.
So remind me, as an investor, if we wanna bring a property to the table, we partner with us on doing that? And are there particular counties or areas you prefer?
We've actually been kind of looking further out to the Gwinnett areas, and the Northside Hospital system has expanded quite a bit out there. There's a lot of, we try to stay close to medical. We've looked down in Columbus, like I was telling you, talking about Macon, and just looking for the main medical centers.
What about Northside, Cherokee County? of that.
Yeah.
What about the Wellstar, like Wellstar's huge over there?
Yeah, we're pretty much good anywhere around medical, and especially on the, like when we've been talking about partnerships and whatnot, there's really only one person we have ever talked about having a really long-term partnership with on a buy and hold, and that's that gentleman right back there in the sub-2 hat. Mr. Eddie Charger, he's the
Why
only
him?
one that we've really
Why
considered.
him?
Because he's amazing. We're in line with the same mission. We want the same, we have like similar long-term goals, and
Okay.
he's just a really good person. So we've talked about the partnerships we've really been talking about have been mostly on, let's do a fix and flip so we can figure out if we like each other. And then we can get out of it and not come and part ways on, if it's just not gonna work out. So that's kind of been where we've been at with partnerships for the most part. And as we've even looked at some other equity splits and things, then we look at our numbers and we're like, we can just pay investors really high percentage rates for their money. We can pay higher rates and still be okay, and then we can keep 100% of the equity. Because investors are pretty happy if we want to give them 15% for 3 years.
So I know you focus on close to healthcare facilities. Are you looking down the road at all to the new Wellstar Hospital that's being planned for Applewood? Potentially any like longer term properties down there once the hospital gets going?
I have not, but I just need more properties, so I'm open to pretty much anywhere because I've figured out that the model works. And like I said, like on day 2, I got the keys to the castle as far as the workman's comp vendor system.
Makes sense.
So there may be some consulting in the future too about just helping other providers get into that network.
Do you have any need in Columbus or Augusta area?
We've looked at Columbus. They have the highest disabled population in the state actually, and they're low income.
It's a little lower priced properties too.
A lot lower priced properties to get in over there. So yes, we've looked at that. We actually have some family down there that we've kind of talked with about monitoring some of this stuff for us.
So you would take some properties down there?
We would,
Okay.
we'll try it, we'll run them anywhere, and
Okay.
we'll do them slow in the sense of, we're not gonna do more than 1 or 2 before we know, like, I'm not gonna get 10 properties down there and see what happens.
I get you.
Yeah.
We would consider it, but I know that area really well also.
One or two and then see how it goes, right?
Not just that, but there are other, how should I say, paramilitary groups.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, that's a great place for veterans because it's a home of the
No, I'm
infantry.
talking about more like gang related.
Oh. Well, military can take care of all that stuff. You've been watching the news, right? We're taking care of world terrorists right now,
Well, the
so.
point is, I'll be very
And
blunt.
some of those guys live down here in
You
Columbus.
have to know the lay of the land when it comes to especially from these lower income areas,
Mhm.
who runs what set.
I get you.
And I have people down there who would be basically my fixer in
Okay.
that respect. They would have my liaison.
I think this is being recorded.
Yeah. Somebody's paying attention.
He was very PC, he did good.
That was good, yeah.
I need someone on both sides.
So, yeah, as far as we're asking about incomes and things and property values, we have a house off Glenwood right now that we're working on, and I learned what a trap house is pretty recently. I didn't know what that word meant.
Could you explain it?
Yeah. Tell us about that. We have some new people in the room.
Is that an acronym?
So understanding what's going on with your neighbors is important. So we're just gonna kind of play out these couple of, we have the City of Atlanta house that's not in the best area, and the Glenwood Avenue house that's not in the best area. So we're seeing how it goes and really don't wanna pile in a whole bunch more of those for now.
Must not be near golf.
I'm not sure.
They're dealing drugs and
Oh, okay. They're entrepreneurs.
they are. They are.
There's a pharmaceutical industry.
Businessman.
Can't drop by.
Yeah. Employment only.
When we started renovating, they thought that we were the feds trying to stalk them down, I think. But it's going great. We give them scrap metal and we're becoming friends.
On purpose or by accident?
No, we're just
Deliberately,
less space in the dumpster.
yeah, help yourself.
So that's about it, y'all. If you have any questions, come talk to me or.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.